citizen.
Out of many
we are world citizens. Same vision is for equal rights and justice for the people them. What's happening to this beautiful world that we're living in? World citizen, lift up your voices.
Welcome to another episode of the People Powered Planet podcast, where each week we bring you special programs focusing on solutions. We are deluged with problems in our world just so deep they seem insurmountable. And yet, rather than focus on those problems, we're a group that focuses on the solutions. And today we have a very special solutionary who took some incredible tragedy and used that to propel herself onto a path of finding solutions. And it reminds me, before I introduce her, I want to say that the founder of the People Powered Planet podcast program turned the tragedy of his own brother being killed in war and his agony over that and his agony over himself killing thousands of people with his bombs in World War II, and turned that agony not into drugs or dropping out or self-destruction, but into finding solutions. And that's what the whole movie, The World Is My Country, is about. Well, today we have somebody who really struck me because she took such a path in the greatest of tragedies, the most painful ones, and that is Scarlett Lewis's son Jesse was killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Oh my God, I can't imagine that tragedy. And I'd like to start off by asking her to tell us a little bit about what her home life was like, what kind of an environment she was bringing him up into before this tragedy happened.
Thank you so much, Arthur. And thank you for having me on here. Thanks everybody for listening. I am a single mom, and so raised my two boys in a little farmhouse. I wanted them to get dirt under their fingernails and be outside running around in the sunshine and gardening. We had a whole plethora of animals. And we had a lot of fun. It was, a really wonderful life. There wasn't anything truly extraordinary about it, except that every human being is extraordinary. And, I saw every day as an adventure. I did practice being present with my boys. And I say that is the best way to live life with the fewest regrets, because I can now tell you, now that, one of them has died, that I don't have many regrets because I was present with them. And I think it's getting increasingly harder to be present with the ones that we love, but it is certainly the way to live life with the fewest regrets.
Wow, what a great lesson for us starting right there. Now tell me, who were some of the pets, some of the animals that Jesse most loved? What were some of the things he most loved about growing up in that kind of farm life?
So we had a plethora of dogs, but they were very big dogs, and they would greet him and slime him. I always said slime is love on Wild Rose Farm. And I'm not sure that he was really that happy with getting slimed every day. But he took horseback riding lessons. We had a horse named Apache. I still have him. He's a black and white draft horse. And one of my favorite memories is, he took, as a mom, you can't teach your kids usually. It's better if you bring somebody in. So I had a friend that came in and gave both my boys riding lessons. And I remember she put these buckets on the posts around the arena, and she'd give both boys coins. And if they could get the horse using their body and the reins close enough to the bucket to dump coins in as they walk by, they would get to keep those coins. So walking down one day to meet him at the gate and walk back with them to see how it went, I remember him having these coins in his hands. And I said, "How did the lesson go?" And he goes, "I'm rich. I'm stinking rich." And he had, maybe a nickel and 10 pennies in his hand. And it was adorable.
I'm stinking rich. I love it. Wow. Wow. So, God, in the midst of a loving home and all that, that wonderful, beautiful childhood, one day you send him off to school with a school bus, or you take him to school. What happens?
Yeah. So his dad picked him up one morning, and it's kind of really, there's some amazing things that happened right before and of course after. But that morning that his father picked him up, that afternoon, we had planned to make gingerbread houses with him. And so I worked and I had taken the afternoon off. I remember walking Jesse out to meet his dad at his car because he was taking him to school. I turned around, gave him a hug, and it's Connecticut in December. It was December 14th. So I turned around and I looked, I noticed, trying to be present, that he had written with his little fingernail on the frost on the side of my car, "I love you." And he had drawn hearts in all my windows while I had been talking to his dad about arrangements to meet at the school that afternoon. And I paused then, because that's one of life's moments, ran in, got my phone, came back out, positioned him by the message, took a picture, took a close up of it, because that's one of life's moments. That message would have been gone on my 45-minute commute drive to work, but now I have it forever. And that was the last picture ever taken of Jesse.
Wow, wow. Maybe later on, if it's easy, it'd be love to see that picture. But that's so terrific. So there you are. He sent this message of love. He's gone off, and then what was the next thing you heard? What were you doing, and how did the news get to you?
I was at work, just another day. I had a friend that was working from home who was watching the news. And so she instant messaged me. I had some other coworkers come up to my desk and say, "Hey, there's been a shooting in Sandy Hook." And I was concerned. And then, news started updating, and we realized it was at one of the schools that my kids attended. And so I left. I got to work. I was there for not very long. And then I have a 45-minute commute. So I started on my 45-minute commute back. And by the time I got there, believe it or not, I wasn't that concerned. There was news that my friends were listening to the news and they were sending me texts. And there was news that a teacher was shot in the foot. And I thought, okay, it's a domestic dispute. And I need to get back there as soon as possible. But when I did, I had to park a quarter of a mile away from the firehouse, which is at the end of this cul-de-sac where the school was further down. And so I realized, wow, this is a really big deal. There were helicopters, there were first responders, there were parents tearfully being reunited with their kids. And so I just started the journey for several hours of trying to figure out what happened to Jesse, because of course he wasn't there, as well as a long list of other kids and adults. And frankly, we weren't told until the end of the day, or given verification that they had actually been murdered. And so it was, I say that it was the worst day of my life. And it was awful.
Oh my God. Well, I can't imagine the feeling to have a loving, beautiful son and then to suddenly get that shocking news. God, what happened to your heart? What did you feel? Were you stunned? Were you numb, or were you crying? What happened?
Well, it's interesting because my older son was in middle school and he was in lockdown in a closet in his Spanish class. And he texted me and said, "Can I come wait with you?" We were waiting at the firehouse. We were being told the kids are hiding. And I literally, Jesse is he was, like a little soldier. I could see him taking a small contingent of kids out into the woods and hiding with them. So and they were telling us that they were hiding and that it was going to take them a while to find them. So, I think your body goes into shock in your mind, and that kind of stuff never happens to people like me. And so I was still, I think, hoping against hope. And so I said, sure, to my 12-year-old son, come on and wait with me into the most chaotic, worst day of our life. Obviously, hindsight is 2020. So I had my 12-year-old son there with me too. Now I'm a single mom, and he was watching me like a hawk. Every gesticulation, listening to the words I was saying, but also monitoring my emotions. And I realized I was modeling for him how to move through difficulty in the moment. And it really helped me to try to be the best version of myself. And that doesn't mean not getting emotional. It just means practicing some self-control and doing what's in the best interest of, everybody that was there. I had some other family come in, and I think it's so shocking. And I was trying to be so strong that I don't think it really, we were waiting for hours and hours. So I came to the conclusion myself before we were actually told. But I think it was when my little brother is married now with a child, but he had driven down all the way down from Boston. So that's about a 3.5 hour drive. That shows you how long we were at the firehouse and waiting for news. He drove down, and I think it was when my mom walked across the parking lot and told him, and I saw him double over in pain. I think that's when it really hit me that, wow, this is really happening. This is really bad. And so, we left shortly after that. We had a ride to my car because there was so much media. They wanted to protect us from all the people waiting in front of the firehouse. But I remember getting to my car, had to drive about a quarter of a mile to it, parked on the side of the road. And I remember the first thing I saw was that car seat in the back seat. And that was Jesse's car seat. He was still, in that, and thinking, I don't need that anymore. No kid for the car seat. It was just really, really, really hard. I'm not the first person to ever go through something like that. Unfortunately, I'm not the last, but it is very difficult.
Wow. Well, now that's the kind of thing that can just sort of like, well, can totally, of course, devastate your life. It can lead people into alcohol addiction, drugs, just total depression. It can lead to all kinds of self-destructive behaviors. What did it do to you? What was your journey uh, in dealing with the tragedy? What did you go through first, and then, well, tell us that journey.
Well, I had a tremendous faith. And so I knew where Jesse was. And I was trying to model for JT. And I think that also helped with my focus. I had this experience of of people that were trying to be helpful, bring in a mom who had lost her son to violence 20 years prior. And I had never met anybody that had lost a child to violence. So I was riveted. At the time, I was wondering if I would survive because the pain was so great. And of course, how hadn't even entered into my mind yet. This was several days after the tragedy. And so I was, when the woman walked in the room, I thought, okay, she's 20 years beyond her tragedy. I'm going to live too. And then she started telling me about her life. And about 5 minutes into her talking, I held up my hand and I said, thank you so much for coming in, for having the courage, to come and see me and to let me know I'm going to live and sharing your story with me. I really appreciate that. But in my mind, I was thinking, that is not going to be my story. I am not going to be angry and vengeful. And that's not how I'm going to spend my life. That's not how I want to model my son's future. My son is looking at me. So I think that's what really woke me up to realize, okay, that's not what I want. I watched how other people in the community were reacting to this tragedy. And of course, now I know there's a big difference between reacting and thoughtfully responding. And it was with a tremendous amount of anger, which I understand, but I saw there was a lot of blame and finger pointing as well. There was a lot of polarization that was happening. If you remember in 2012, after Sandy Hook Elementary School, you were either pro-gun or you were anti-gun. And those two sides would never meet. And there was a lot of finger pointing, fault finding, blaming. And I thought, you know what? That is not going to fix this problem. In fact, that anger is exactly what caused it. So I thought, I looked at how we handled other societal issues. And I started looking back in history, like, there's a substance abuse issue that's worse now than it ever has been. And I look back at how we waged a war on drugs. And I thought, that's a double negative. And that never makes a solution, or it hasn't. I saw how our tendency is to focus on the problem, even with school safety. We continue to focus on the attack end of what's called the pathway to violence. Starts with a grievance, stair steps up, ideation, preparation into an attack. We focused all of our energy, our resources, money, time, effort on the attack end, active shooter drills, of which, by the way, Jesse had just had 3 weeks prior, and hardening measures. And I thought, that's not enough. When we react, we are always a step behind learning from mistakes. And of course, we're still doing this because as humans, we're wired to react and focus on the problem, unfortunately. And of course, there are fires that need to be put out. But I've been advocating since that time, if we what we really need to do is reallocate some of those sources towards proactive prevention, towards that grievance end of the pathway to violence, and provide kids and big kids with the essential life skills they need to be able to manage their pain, basically, so that it doesn't escalate into an attack or substance abuse or mental illness. And so that experience really shaped how I moved through my own healing. I really wanted to become the best version of myself for my 12-year-old son. I was the only thing that he had, and he was watching my actions and learning from them. I knew that I wanted to get back to joy, Arthur. We had so much joy as the family of 3 that we were, and just to focus on that. And I didn't want that to end. I continue to want that for my older son, but also for myself. And so I started making choices that would lead me in that direction.
Well, so generally, when they talk about the 4 stages of grief and going through, the anger, the bargaining, all those, do you feel that you went through those 4 stages?
I feel like fairly quickly I moved to compassion for the shooter. I didn't ever really have anger for the shooter because I saw everybody else that did, anger for him and his mother. But for me, that was sort of a cop-out, believe it or not, because I thought if it was really all their fault, this would never have happened before, and it has, and it would never happen again. Sandy Hook would have been the last time, but it's become just normal in our society. In fact, I read somewhere that we average 2 school shooting incidents a week in our country. And so, I really, I leaned on God. I told JT while we were at the firehouse, we know where Jesse is and he's in paradise. It's going to be harder for us, but we're going to be able to do this, and we're going to move forward in faith. I saw a lot of anger towards Adam and his mom, yet I had sort of walked in their footsteps just a little bit, trying to get special help, help for my sons in the school district. And it was impossible. And it wasn't done kindly. It was very difficult. And I was able to put the added services that my kids needed on a credit card and ask friends to drive them because I had a job. But, Adam's mom didn't do that. And so I knew that somebody that could do something so heinous must have been in a tremendous amount of pain. And it turns out, from what I learned about his life, that he was, and that he didn't feel seen. And that, I can tell you stories that would just evoke a tremendous amount of empathy for him, maybe even surprisingly in your hearts, at the little boy who was in so much pain and didn't get the help that not only he needed, but that, our kids are entitled to. And so, instead of feeling anger, I really felt compassion. And I think that really helped me more quickly move through the grieving process.
What were one of those stories that this little boy endured that would bring him to commit such a heinous, awful crime?
Well, I will tell you this too. I say that the Choose Love movement started at Jesse's funeral because everybody was saying, what can we do? So I got up and I spoke to the congregation with Jesse's little casket right behind me. And I said, there is something that you can do. This whole tragedy started with an angry thought in a little boy's head. And everything starts with a thought. And that thought grew through more pain, more suffering into what later became the Sandy Hook tragedy. And the amazing thing to me was that a thought can be changed. So I asked everybody that day to start thinking about what they think about and to change an angry thought into a loving thought. Now, this is what Choose Love helps us do in every situation, circumstance, and interaction. But if, as far as the stories, when he was in first grade and he went to first grade in those classrooms at Sandy Hook Elementary School. That's how he knew to turn down that hallway looking for soft targets to kill. He and his mom made birthday invitations for his birthday. And he brought them one day to school in a backpack, handed them out to the students, and no one came to his birthday. Fast forward when he was in fifth grade in Sandy Hook Elementary School, and there are other stories, but these are the ones that stick out in my mind. He wrote a handwritten book, and it was called The Book of Granny. And he made copies, and it was his intention to bring it to school to sell, but instead it was taken from him. And the book was about a witch that came to the elementary school. Her broomstick opened into a semi-automatic weapon, and she murdered children. Now, there was never any follow-up from when that story was taken from him. Our kids cry out for help, and sometimes they're ignored. And there are different reasons for that. But when you don't feel seen, and by the way, my research goes into speaking with school shooters. And I will tell you that all of them say that they did not feel seen or heard. And I go back to Adam and I see that that is exactly what happened with him. I didn't have the opportunity to speak to Adam because he killed himself on site, but that's exactly what happened to him as well. And I think that it's imperative that we pause and get present so that we use courage, by the way, to be present with people in pain. Because if we don't, that pain can escalate and it can come back to bite us.
So you had the courage to go meet a school shooter. Was it in a prison? I mean, in a youth detention center, or what was one of the examples of where you had a compelling encounter and where you had the courage to meet a kid that did the kind of thing that happened to your son?
I've had many compelling encounters, virtual from prison, in prison, at youth detention centers, even on a book club, because one of them wrote a book, at my house because we were being interviewed, and they all have a story of pain. And here's the thing, we all feel pain, all of us. Bad things happen to good people. That's just a fact of life, unfortunately. But there are skills and tools and awarenesses that we can teach kids to fortify them to be able to learn, grow, and be strengthened by that pain, rather than allowing it to take them down and those around them.
Wow, that is really powerful. Okay, so now let's go ahead and turn to the words on the board beside you. Tell us the story of those words and how that evolved into this program to help people deal with that pain.
Yeah, absolutely. When I came home, and I say that the Choose Love movement was not my idea. I'll say that right off the bat. When I came home to this little farmhouse, I found written on our kitchen chalkboard, and this is just a spray painted side of my cabinet, three words that Jesse had written sometime shortly before he died: nurturing, healing, love. Now, those words were phonetically spelled because he was in first grade and just learning to write. But when I saw them, I realized that's the solution. It's so simple. Kids that can give and receive love, that feel good about themselves, they don't want to cause harm to themselves or others. Nurturing, healing, love. And I literally took a picture. I went and talked to a doctoral professor. I said, I know what my purpose is on earth now. And I know what the solution is to what happened to my son. It's to get these three words into schools where kids are a captive audience, where they are learning and growing, and where we can introduce this to them. And so I was given a little bit of direction into how to create curriculum to teach kids, and a formula was developed that is specifically designed to bring our locus of control back inside of us. So locus of control is your personal power. And, things happen to you in your life, and it depends on how you thought. If you react or you thoughtfully respond, you can get angry, you can have, which is fine, but you can stay stuck in that anger. You can go down a path of revenge, which is, by the way, the same neural pathways as addiction. And you can become victimized. You can become hopeless. Hopelessness is the single most consistent factor in suicide and violence. This formula helps to return that locus of control back inside us, where we have the power to create change for a positive future. That is the definition of hope, where we have the courage to face challenges in our lives and to pause and to get curious about how these are going to help strengthen us. That is so important. And it's not something we're born with the ability to do. We have to be taught. I didn't know this as an adult, and I have spent and dedicated my life for the last 12 years in trying to figure out what is a solution to the pain and destruction that is going on in our society today. And I believe that it all lies in love.
Wow, that is so powerful, and I love that. Uh, Such a great way to frame that. So tell us, how did this framing and these words, tell us how you work that into a curriculum and what's moved forward with that.
So the formula came from Jesse's example of courage and his nurturing, healing, love message. So Jesse, at 6 years old, stood up to the shooter and sacrificed his life to save 9 of his classmates' lives. That is absolutely incredible. I learned that within the first few days. And let me tell you something, when you hear that your 6-year-old son is a hero, it makes you stand up a little straighter and realize that you need to do something courageous as well. Courage is contagious. So the formula starts with courage, because courage is the most important character value. It's the one that underlies all the rest. And of course, it takes so much courage to look pain in the face instead of resist and avoid it or maybe numb ourselves. And then nurturing means loving kindness and gratitude. So then we go into gratitude. Gratitude, we call the great mind shifter, because out of all the tens of thousands of thoughts that we have every day, the majority of which are negative and repetitive, by the way, we can only focus on one thought. So as we're going through our thought process, when we want to shift away from a more negative to a positive, we think of something that we're grateful for. We get a 10% boost in mood, and it helps to add to optimism and all these other benefits and flourishing. Then nurturing healing means forgiveness. And I had so much pushback when people heard that I wanted to put forgiveness in the formula. Forgiveness? You can't teach kids forgiveness. That's way too lofty a subject. They'll never understand it. And I have to tell you that kids don't have that prejudice against forgiveness. They don't have misunderstanding about it, like it means that you have to say it's okay, or that you condone what's done, or that it's a gift that you give the person who hurt you. They learn about what forgiveness is as a gift to themselves of freedom from pain, and it's the most practiced character value. They love it. It's what they extend to those kids they know are hurting, that are bullying them. It's how they get their personal power back. It's how they feel good about themselves. They model it for others. They teach it. It's absolutely incredible. They call it a superpower. They say it feels so good to forgive. Forgiveness was a huge part of my personal healing journey. Think about kids that don't have to carry around childhood trauma with them the rest of their lives and have that impact negatively every relationship, every situation with the burden of pain. And then love is compassion in action. It's literally looking at yourself or someone else, identifying a need, and then acting to help that need. And here's the most beautiful thing that I love about compassion in action. When you give nurturing, healing love to somebody else, you get it back yourself. So it's courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion in action equals choosing love. And we have this choice moment model. That's the space that in between what's happening and our response. Most of us just react every day to what's happening in our lives. And usually that works out for us, reacting out of habit or memory. But habits don't always serve us. Memories aren't always accurate. And we teach kids and big kids to pause in this choice moment, get curious, to allow that information to move from our fear center to our prefrontal cortex, where the brake on our instinctual reactions is and our highest level of functioning, and thoughtfully respond with love. Make a heroic choice, because it literally is. Our brain rewards us for reacting in anger. So make the heroic choice of love, using gratitude to shift the lens of your thinking, forgiveness and compassion, and of course, the courage that it takes to pause instead of reacting. And so this working together is now in the hands of millions of kids across the world and adults. But the learning is for all stages and ages, by the way. It's the same, if you're thinking about it, you're like, wait a minute, I could use that. Absolutely. I practice it every day, and you never master it. Life's a journey. So you continue using it, not just in the classroom, but to be a good citizen at work with your own families. And it just continues to ripple out.
Wow. Forgiveness, courage, love, indeed a superpower that can help us, overcome all this strife and division and help unite our world. And it's really the hope for the planet. Wow, what a superpower. And speaking of courage, you said your son stood up to the shooter. Were there kids who were survivors who described what happened that day? Can you tell us what did happen in the shooter day that they saw?
Yes. Yeah. So the shooter shot his way through the glass doors and made a left down the first grade hallway. Their principal and guidance counselor was meeting with a parent in a classroom on the other side of the hallway across from Jesse's room. He murdered those two people and then turned into Jesse's room. He most likely killed Jesse's teacher, who was standing right behind him, and his gun ran out of bullets or jammed. And during the short delay, the kids who were in the classroom said that they're alive today. And they were saying this in media interviews as they graduated from high school, because Jesse told them to run. And so, wow, amazing, right? Jesse didn't run. And I believe it's because he chose to stay and try to protect his beloved teacher.
Hmm. Wow. So maybe he tried to confront him while he was reloading, and but you don't know the details because everybody ran.
Right. I mean, there were marks on his body that showed that he might have rushed the shooter and gotten kicked back. The shooter might have come up and stood over him and shot him in the head. He was the only child that died of one bullet hole. And my apologies. I know that's very that's hard to hear. But I also think I remember doing my first media interview in my mom's kitchen, and she's standing beside me, and I'm using the word murder. And afterwards, she said to me, "Could you use a different word? Could you say something other than murder?" And I said, "What would you like me to use?" And she said, "Well, I don't know, like maybe lost, when I lost my son." I said, "But I didn't lose him. You know, what else?" And she said, "Killed." And I said, "Well, it's hard to hear the word murder, hard to hear the story, but that's actually what's happening on a regular basis in our country. And I think that we need to hear it, because this is what our children are facing. I'm not talking about somebody I'm not talking about a gang member. I'm not talking about a drug dealer. I'm not talking about somebody who might have put themselves into harm's way. I'm talking about a first grader in an elementary school, in their classroom. And I think we've become sort of numb to it. And I welcome the ability to kind of just state it as it is, and maybe share with others, like, yeah, this is actually happening. And it is our responsibility as adults. I think the other thing is, Arthur, we're too quick to say, oh, it's their fault because they won't pass a law. It's the leader's fault because they won't do this or that. There's no leader that's coming to fix this for us. It's taken a while for us to get here. It's going to be you and I. And so, I'm trying to motivate people, like, come on board and let's do this, because our children's responsibility, and you understand this, as the world is my country, our children are relying on us to create a world that's better than we found it, so that we can leave it for them. And right now, they're losing confidence in us to be able to keep them safe.
Absolutely. Wow. This is so powerful. Shortly, we're going to be, not quite yet, we're going to play a little video clip of one of the programs you do in the schools. And while you're watching it, if anybody feels moved to start asking a question, they can raise their hand, and we'll come back with you in a moment. So let's roll with that little video clip.
Did you know that there is a secret formula that can help you and others? This formula helps you to be the best you. It can also make life better and happier for everyone. Not everyone knows about it, but we can learn it, practice it, and teach it to others, so it won't be a secret anymore. Are you ready for the secret formula? Here it is. Courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion and action equals choosing love. If we practice all of these things, we are choosing love. When we choose love, our lives get richer and better. The first part of our formula is courage. That's the superpower that helps you to do the right thing, even when it's hard. We have a voice inside us that often tells us to be afraid or worried. It tells us that we can't do something. This voice can make us feel uncertain, anxious, and full of fear. When we have courage, we tell ourselves to try, and we say, my fears won't stop me. Even if we feel scared, unsure, or nervous, we listen to the courageous voice inside that says, you can do it. Courage gives us the power to make good choices and do things even if they are hard. It helps us do the right thing to help ourselves and others. The next part of our formula is gratitude. Gratitude is when we take the time to be thankful and have a positive attitude. When we have an attitude of gratitude, we know that there is always something to be grateful for. It's really cool that we can choose what we think, how we feel, and what we do. When we practice gratitude, we think grateful thoughts that make us feel happy. When we feel happy, we can make healthy, positive choices that make our life and the lives of others better. Next is forgiveness. Forgiveness can be hard because it means even if we are angry or hurt by something we did or someone else did, we let go of those strong feelings so that we can feel better. Sometimes our feelings can be really big, powerful, and hard to manage. But when we practice forgiveness, we find a way to say goodbye to those feelings that can make it hard to feel and be our best. Forgiveness takes courage and an attitude of gratitude because we have to be strong and brave and change our thinking, even when it is hard. When we forgive, we turn angry thoughts into loving thoughts. When we can do this, we have more control and power and are able to feel so much better. The last part of our formula is compassion in action. Compassion in action is when you care about the feelings of others and step outside yourself to help those in need or those in pain. You do things to help others. When you show compassion, you are connecting with others, being a good friend, and spreading kindness wherever you go. When you show courage, gratitude, forgiveness, and compassion in action, you are choosing love. This is the most important choice you can make every day. And the great thing is that you get to choose. The world can be full of anger, hate, sorrow, and troubles, but you don't have to be. You can't always choose what happens to you, but you can always choose how you respond. You can choose to respond using courage, gratitude, forgiveness, and compassion in action. You can always choose love. Everyone needs love. Love connects us. When you choose love, you make others feel good, and it makes you feel good too. So now you know the secret formula that will help you and others, the way to make life fuller, brighter, and better. We don't want this to be a secret, so let's tell everyone about it. Starting today, let's choose love and start making this world a better place.
Wow, what a great message for children, and bravo! I see people applauding, so thank you. And so I have one more question before we open it to other people's questions, and that is, um, one of the things that maybe is the most difficult is forgiving the self. People say, "Oh God, if I'd only done this, if I'd only done that, oh, I just should have," and they tear themselves up with that pain. How does this address uh, how do you apply this to the self?
Oh, it's very important to forgive yourself. Even today, 12 years later, I'll have a thought that comes in of regret of a mistake that I made as a parent. And forgiving yourself is so important as a modeling for others so that you can move forward without guilt and shame. It's really important to learn how to do that because we all, and we teach kids, we all make mistakes, and that's okay. Nobody's perfect. Really important to forgive yourself for doing that, and then learn from the mistakes if forgiveness is necessary, and learn from the mistake, and then move forward.
Wow. And now tell us also, how is this program reaching kids across the country, around the world? Tell us a little bit more about the actual program and how people can tie into it and what kind of impact it's having.
Absolutely. So this program is spread by word of mouth and by referral from teacher to teacher. And we don't do advertising, and we don't do outreach. So the fact that it's gone around the world is pretty amazing. Anyone is invited to go on to chooselovemovement.org and register and have access to all of our programming. We start in infant toddler and we go all the way to 12th grade. We have programming for homes and communities, and they're all correlated with the formula and the choice moment model. And so everybody is speaking a universal language. We have schools. So for instance, an elementary school, they will split their school year up into 4 quarters, and everyone in the school, everyone, like, the people that serve the lunch, the crossing guards, the school resource officers, the front office staff, educators, janitors, they're all focused on courage the first quarter. And so everybody's speaking the same language. And then they move into gratitude, and then forgiveness, and then compassion and action. And every year, the lessons are scaffolded up, and you learn a little bit more about neuroscience or positive psychology or post-traumatic growth. there's so much to learn. I'm still learning, obviously, and we upgrade these programs every summer with new research that comes out, really exciting about emotions and different things. So, and I have schools that have been choosing love since the very beginning. So for 10 years now, and they're just going deeper and deeper every year. We have we put out surveys every year, and we have a 99% satisfaction rate. We have, I think, a 47% reduction in referrals, which is, behavioral issues that have to be referred to administration. We have just incredible results there on the website. Academics go up, behavioral problems, mental health issues go down, and it's just really incredible.
Wow. Now, in addition to the incredible programs you have for schools across the country, you also have other programs for communities and adults and for the world. Tell us a little bit about those.
We do. We have a community program. So we've done community events, and there are schools, homes, and communities that do this together. In fact, New Hampshire, we became part of their statewide school safety initiative. Remember the pathway to violence used per the Department of Homeland Security. They actually implemented Choose Love as addressing that grievance end of the pathway to violence. And so we have almost every school. We have every school in New Hampshire that has downloaded the program, but then it's spread into law enforcement. It's spread into foster care and pediatricians' offices. And now we've been piloting the Choose Love program in all the prisons for the last 4 years in New Hampshire, which is really incredible. I mean, these are the people that did not get these essential life skills, and so they're learning them now. You can learn them anytime, but it's one of my favorite populations to work with, because I love seeing that light come on inside them where they go, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had a choice of love. And if I did, I would have chosen that, of course, right? But I can do it now. That's really exciting.
Wow. We don't know we have that superpower in us. And when we catch that, and when it's triggered, we have a superpower that can heal us, can heal the world. This is so phenomenal, amazing. Well, I could talk with you forever, but I know there are some other people who have questions, so I'm going to turn it over to Melanie for the question period. And thank you so much for your warm heart and for the incredible courage you have here in the world. Take it now, Melanie.
Yeah, thank you, Arthur. And Scarlett, oh my God. Okay. First of all, this is so rich, so phenomenal. You have all the stages and the fact that, adults can learn all stages, all ages. I mean, what a beautiful thing. And what a counter to these, drills, shooter drills and things like that. I mean, those words, hurt my heart and, scare me, hurt my heart. And that's not what we should have to do. We shouldn't have that stage where we're having to, I can't even think of it. But, so your story, your knowledge, but courage, just courage to be out there telling everyone, something that's a tragedy that happened to you that has turned around and is just making a huge difference. So I just want deep, deep gratitude to you, and thank you. Yes, we do have Kyle. Kyle would like to, he made a comment in the chat, so Kyle would like to go ahead and ask you a question, make a comment. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I just want to thank you. And I wanted to say, I would like to see it required in all the schools. So in New Hampshire, are the kids required to take this lesson, and how did somebody get it started? Because I work with incarcerated individuals, and they're talking about collaborative communication and learning these life skills of conflict resolution. And to me, it's like, whoa, just like you said, it's, I just wonder why everybody's not requiring this besides their math classes, their English classes, and reading and everything else. So how did somebody get it started in New Hampshire? And are the kids required in every grade to do this curriculum or what?
That's a really great question. And no, they're not required to do it. This was a governor initiative through the statewide school safety initiative. There was no requirement, but almost all of the schools, I think all the schools have downloaded it, and so many are doing it. I find that when you make it a requirement, there's some natural resistance. And however, I will also say that I noticed when I first started going out that it takes a courageous leader. I had some resistance even to the word love, by the way. And so now that it's on the sideline of the Super Bowl, I would say that we've come a long way over the past 12 years, but in being able to say the word love. But I thought, wow, the more resistance there is, the more we need it. We need to have that word roll off our tongue. So, this has started in so many different ways because every school, every district is different. They have a different culture. So sometimes it's started by one educator that brings it in. They may ask their administration, will you support this? And they may say no, or we already have something. And that something, does that something work? Is that embraced by educators as well? Is it used every day? Does it have a parent component? There's so many questions. So sometimes it's a single educator. The one time it was a governor in a state who was a courageous leader who saw the common sense of this and realized that this was a great idea. Other times there are champions. We have ambassadors in different states and countries that realize the importance of this. They're volunteers, but they want to bring this to their area. Maybe sometimes parents because they're kids. A lot of times it's educators. Sometimes they even are creative and they work out ways to make it a job. We have somebody in Hawaii who worked with a private foundation and they said, yes, we want love in schools. So we will fund a full-time salary for you and you can go around and support the schools to do this. Our program is right now, and as long as I can keep it, no cost. Because, I went to my administration and I asked if they had an essential life skills program like this. And they said they did, that they had spent a lot of money, in fact, so much money that they couldn't afford to train the teachers. And therefore it never got out of the box. And I thought, okay, I'm going to create a program where there is a connection, an emotional connection, where it will get out of the box that includes everyone, that everyone can benefit from, not just the kids, but the students as well. And I'm going to make it free. I consider my son and his murderer, they were priced out of the market on this. And no child should be priced out of the market. And even people living in areas where they're not, they should be concerned about those that are, because you never know, what those kids who do not have these skills and tools are going to grow up to do.
Wow. Gosh. Yes. It should be everywhere. And thank you for doing it free. And then, of course, I'm sure you take donations on your website. Or
absolutely, that's how we live.
Okay, so let's contribute. Let's go to her website. Go ahead and
sure. Thank you. It's chooselovemovement.org.
Perfect. Yes.
You can go to the website. You can even become a member. So there's an option to donate on a monthly basis. And so you get kind of an upgraded exposure to Choose Love, and you get to have access to different parts of our learning management system and pre-recorded videos and video series and lessons. And there's a think tank with me once a month. And so, there's lots of different ways to be able to do that. But also, we spread our message by word of mouth. And so please, if you would post, maybe this interview, or at least the awareness of who we are and what we do on your social media. And I always feel funny saying that, because on one end social media is dividing us, but on the other it's a great way to get a message around. And so yeah, just help us spread the word. That would really be appreciated.
Yes, share, especially if you know teachers, get it out to them. You have children in school, get it in your schools. Let's do it. Okay, Quanta, go right ahead. I'll let Quanta ask her question, make a comment. Go ahead, Quanta.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate your willingness to, go over your pain and make your pain a source of healing for humanity. And I am totally sorry. That's for a mother to go through what you've been through. I just want you to know that my heart is with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. What I wanted to ask was, is it possible, especially you have been empowered by this painful experience, that we try to do something about the media, the television, of course, social media is another thing, that our society, like a soil, is contaminated with so much that our children are being, infiltrated with these horrible things. So, I did this in 3 commercials I got off the TV by relentlessly writing to them. And that was something that made an elderly look, stupid, and violence against women. And the other one was about children's cough medicine, and then actually there was another one that was from Ad Council, making a Black person turn into a snake and giving a child to a drug. So I called them and I wrote to them relentlessly, and they got it off. I mean, the commercials are not there anymore. So what I was trying to ask you was, can we create a powerful effort to get these serious, violent movies and making violence a way to resolve conflicts? And guns are just so promoted insidiously as a way to resolve conflicts. So I would love to see you as an empowered woman, empowered mother, if we can do something like that at a larger scale. I was just a little old me.
You know what's interesting? I frequently have media at my house doing interviews, and this interviewer was saying from a news channel that his friend was giving him a hard time about what the news covers, and he said, "Don't watch it. We cover stuff because that's what people watch." You know what I mean? And our brains are attracted to bad stuff, and there's a lot of hypocrisy in Hollywood. They say they're against guns, but almost every movie has a gun in it, and gratuitous violence. And so we got to stop watching things. We have to start using our dollars to, make decisions. And, I've tried the top down, bottom up. I really, I've been to the White House many times, worked with several administrations, and I haven't found that that's effective. I've found that grassroots, it's kind of like Margaret Mead, the famous anthropologist, says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And I feel like we're going to have to start making changes for ourselves in what we consume and what we watch. And it's going to have to be translated into dollars that will make the change. I don't know. That's just my thought about it.
Yes, we have power. And Quanta, you just did an example of your power. You were able to speak up and get commercials off, and then we can turn off all that violence. And yeah, absolutely, we have power and we can do this. Grassroots way. Real quick, Scarlett, do you have a little bit more time? We have 2 more questions. Can you do it, or if we do quick?
I could maybe do two questions.
2?
I have a presentation I'm giving.
Okay. Quickly to Suzanne. Quick. Pretty please. Suzanne, you're okay.
Hey, Scarlett, unreal what you're doing, that video is awesome. Your program is awesome. I wanted to give you a suggestion for something for the program. It's something that I watched recently and it changed my life. Something very simple, but I hadn't thought about it that way. It was a business trainer, and he was on a panel. And I'm just going to read you the brief little quote of his, and I'm going to put it in the chat. And there's 7 minutes more of him in this link. But listen to this, because forgiveness is very hard. It's a concept, and you've been hurt. How do you forgive? And it's awesome to get to that place. But here's a way to do it that's easy. So here's what he said. Every single thing we do in this life should come from love. Every action, every statement, even if you have to let somebody go. He's a business guy, remember? He, heads of corporations. Even if you have to let somebody go, the hardest thing you have to do, can you do it with love and not anger, fear, greed? Most business decisions come from fear and greed. Can you make that exact same decision, but from a place of love? So that's a very real change of how we act in our everyday life. It's so easy to be angry and hostile. And I mean, that's natural. You're in that situation. But wait a minute, every situation, you come from love, much easier than the idea of forgiveness, which is so hard to put together. I say there's 7 more minutes of this brilliant guy. I was just in awe, and it changed my life. I think now before I speak. We all know it's about love, but the actual coming from love is different. That's the experience of it, not the concept of it. So here
I
I'm putting
love that. Thank you so much, Suzanne. I'd love to watch that. And Kyle, I don't own a TV either. I didn't grow up with a TV. I don't miss having a TV. Yeah. So if you don't have it, you don't miss it. And it always amazes me, in the evenings when I'm doing something outside and I look in, or I'm driving by people's houses, and they're all around their TV, and I feel sad for them.
Yes, 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 a little bit too much of that for sure. So Titi, go right ahead, real quick. Sorry, quick.
Yeah, so very good evening to everybody from after a long time I'm meeting everybody. So it's a very nice feeling that I'm getting to meet everybody. But I'm so spellbound by your presentation, and I'm just getting goosebumps in my hands, the way you have experienced life, the way you have experienced pain. But the greatest thing that I've learned from you is that how you have converted your pain into power, and how you're spreading the message as a mother. What you've been through is we just cannot even imagine. But what you are doing right now is commendable. So hats off to you. I want to salute you. I think it's the biggest respect that you're giving to your child. And maybe he's seeing somewhere up there that his mother is like the biggest star tonight. And thank you for inspiring so many women. The way you are carrying yourself, the confidence, the courage, it gives so much of hope to millions of women, who are struggling silently. And I think you're not just a survivor, you're a warrior, you're a fighter. You will never give up. So my question to you is, gun violence, I've been reading and following news for a very long time, and it has been prevalent in US for a very long time. And I've been hearing that there are laws which prevents, people from buying guns. But still, this situation is very much rampant in US. So a lot of preventive and curative action right now, the government and the organizations, I think your organization is taking forward, not only focusing on preventive measures, but also curative measures. So what has been your biggest take? I would like to know, from all these years of experience working on this issue, what will be your message to the world to how to counter this situation. And so that is my question to you. But hats off to you. I'm so stunned and spellbound tonight. Thank you, Walt is my country team, for giving us this inspirational session. Thank you.
Thank you. That was so beautiful. I really appreciate those sentiments. I think if I was going to say anything, it would be very simple. And it would be to focus on love, and it would be to focus on thoughtfully responding with love. We can't always choose what happens to us, but we can always choose how we thoughtfully respond. That is our superpower as human beings. Not everybody knows that, and not everybody remembers it. In fact, I sometimes forget my superpower that I have, this ability to thoughtfully respond with love. I believe that is the solution. It seems too simple to be true, but I look at all the efforts that we've put into place to get rid of guns, the laws, and really, if you look at the outcome of what that's done, it's put more guns on the street and more violence, unfortunately. What you focus on grows. What you resist persists. I did not want to live my life that way. I did not want to be fighting against something. I wanted to be for something, for the most powerful element in the universe, the unifier, the thing that we're all the exact same in, is that is the want and need to love and be loved. Without that, we suffer. And that is what I wanted to focus my life on. That's what I wanted to model for my son. That's how I wanted to honor my young son's legacy. And that's, when you focus on love, you have an inner peace, regardless of the circumstances or situation. And so I just, the message is so simple that it's maybe not taken up by others. I think some people think love is weak, but what we know on this call is that love is the strongest response that you could possibly ever muster. And in every situation, circumstance, or interaction, it is a choice. And I think we need to remind each other in a loving way about that, and remind our our immediate family, our inner circles, our communities, and even our leaders, that you have two choices. You can react in anger, hatred, resentment, revenge, or you can choose love as a thoughtful response. And that is the most powerful thing that you can do. And I think once we start to change the narrative behind love to power and strength, then we will start to change the world.
Oh my, wow. Thank you for that. That's just fills my heart. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I'll send it back to Arthur. Arthur, go ahead.
Wow. Change the narrative from love as being meek or weak to being the most powerful force in the universe. That actually is my purpose in life and in our program. When Jesus said, love your enemies, many people took that as this is meekness, love those who oppress you, well, you're just going to bow our heads being meek. But I think, Gandhi and others showed that this is the strong force, satigraha, nonviolence, love. There was an incredible nonviolent movement throughout Eastern Europe that helped bring down the Berlin Wall. In Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, people held hands in a chain across all three countries. There was a singing revolution when Russian tanks came rolling in. The mighty, powerful, superpower Russian army came rolling in with tanks. They were defeated by people singing songs, by a singing revolution. Whenever the tanks would come down the street, everybody rushed toward the tank and sing loving songs and sing songs of patriotic songs. And the Soviets had to withdraw, the Russians had to withdraw. Lithuania gained their independence. They mourn the 14 people who were killed and run over by tanks, but compare that to the what million or so killed in Ukraine, where there was a violent response to the exact same thing, where the tanks rolled in and people thought violence was a strong force. No, that's the weak force. The military force, hatred, violence, shooting, that is the weak force. We try it over and over again. Mighty empires try it, and again they fail to subject people with their incredible machines of violence and trillions of dollars. And love, in fact, is the power. And thank you so much for sharing that beautiful, beautiful power with us. For those who want to join you in getting this wonderful program, the consultations with you, tell us one more time how we get in touch with you and how people can embrace you and bring you into their lives and the lives of their children, family, and friends.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for the time. I know time and attention are our most precious resource. So thank you for yours. Attention is the purest form of love, right? Paying attention. And it's chooselovemovement.org. Please share that far and wide. Please talk about it. That's how we spread, by word of mouth. Believe it. It's still the most powerful way to spread a message. We're starting to create this worldwide movement that people can join to choose love. We have an ambassador in Italy who has translated this and now trying to spread this into schools in Italy. So we're trying all over the world, and we need you. We need your help. We need as many people as possible. So chooselovemovement.org. You can donate. You can help spread the word. There's so many other ways to be involved. So thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. And I love that. And I do urge people to definitely donate to your movement. Also, remember that we also make this program free. But if you become a member and you join, you get 2 months free, and then it's only $10 a month donation. That's the kind of donation that can help keep bringing us these wonderful programs. So please do join us as well. Please become a member and join us this week, each week, and every week on the People Powered Planet podcast.
World citizen, lift up your voices. Oh, you know we got something to say. All we need is the same directions, heading in one way.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video.